This is dated August 24th, 2021. Originally, it was posted August 23rd, 2021. A little less than a week ago, right? And Kristen De Silva, so it's been updated though on the 24th, right? Las Vegas detectives awarded for September 2020 arrest and suspected terrorist plot. Now, what's interesting about this is the only reason we know, apparently, is because they awarded these guys who did it. And, I get it that in law enforcement, you need to celebrate your victories, right? So if something good happens, you want to talk about it and let people know you're doing what you're supposed to do. And it's also positive encouragement. In this situation, I'm going to be frank with you, it seems a little bit like overkill. To be honest with you, it seems a little bit like overkill considering the nature of the situation per se and the kind of ceremony that I see here. But what do I know? But I just say what I think I know, right? LVMPD detectives awarded for stopping terrorism, counterterrorism section recognized for September 2020 suspect arrest. A group of detectives were honored last week by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for discovering what they called a terrorist plot. The plot aspect of this, to be frank with you, seems minor. It seems half-baked, but I understand why. I guess what else would you call it? And maybe you'll understand that when we get into the story. Las Vegas, Fox 5. A group of detectives were honored last week by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for discovering what they called a terrorist plot. On September 22nd, 2020, multiple people called police to report gunshots in the 6600 block of Canyon Cove Way near Alexander Road and Rainbow Boulevard. Now, this is a pretty strange because he actually called the police himself in relation to something else, and it ended up being in his own downfall. Pretty bizarre. And you'll find out about this story here in a second. The man allegedly firing 27-year-old Lacey Walther also called police and reported a suspect was breaking into his car. So apparently that's the way this whole thing started. Someone's trying to break into this gentleman's car who's on the screen there, right? He told the dispatcher the suspect pointed a firearm at him, and he fired at the suspect multiple times before the suspect ran off, according to one of Walther's arrest reports. So he called the cops and said, hey, man, I just, fired off my gun because this dude's trying to, steal my car or whatever. And he says he had a gun too. Now, if you watch the video, it's, I'm pro Second Amendment. But dang, this dude shot off a lot of shots, Lacey, and he ripped in to all the a bunch of surrounding houses. I'm glad no one got hurt from him. It seemed like a somewhat of a reckless display because you can watch it on the security camera. Police spoke with one resident who showed them bullet holes in his house and car. So I don't know, that's why firearms training is important. He's trying to protect his car, I guess, and thinks the guy has a gun, but then he ends up shooting other people's cars and houses. Another neighbor said he saw the car burglary suspect on his security camera system. So someone really was messing around with cars, all right? Police said they found 7 shell casings in front of a home on Cobble Creek Road where Walther lived with his mother. Police stated there were no shell casings to indicate anyone else but Walther had fired a weapon. All right. So story's getting kind of interesting, right? Guy lives with his mom. Let off 7 shots at a burglary suspect. Okay, let's continue on here and see what else is going on with this story. Walther was uncooperative with officers, they wrote in the report, and changed his story several times. But it's ironic because he called the police himself, After speaking with him, they went inside his home to clear family out. Police spoke with his mother, who allowed police to enter the garage where she said her son kept his gun. Now watch this. Walther was placed into custody about 5 p.m. before the shooting. During an interview, Walther stated he wanted an attorney, and the interview was shut down. Walther was arrested on 6 counts of discharging a firearm into an occupied structure, 1 count of breaking, injuring, or tampering with a motor vehicle. Wait, because he shot the other guy's car in an accident? Okay, so, I've read this story already, but I don't know. Maybe they were doing this because they saw something in the garage, but this sounds messed up, doesn't it? So far? But don't worry, we're not done with the story. I'm just reading it objectively, right? Here's the thing. Watch this. In the garage, officers found the firearm as well as 3D printed gun parts, body armor, a painting resembling Osama bin Laden on the wall, which was described at the Thursday event as a shrine. So that's where, praise God, that the police, it appears, did stop someone who had some dangerous intent. It appears that that's the case. But this is where, the media comes in and all these forces have their own way they spin stuff. I have the picture of the garage. It's part of the cover image to this YouTube video. Calling it a shrine is a massive overreach, but it's certain words that evoke certain ideas. Now, again, I'm on the side of stopping terrorism, but I'm also looking at these things objectively and realize that there's a certain level of gamesmanship that apparently goes on, and we just recognize that. And a YouTube video open on Walther's computer titled, "Hebrew Israelites Know White People in Heaven." Guess what? That means you can search for the exact video he was watching. Now, here's where things get interesting. I'm not saying it's a shrine, but apparently he has some kind of heroic admiration for bin Laden. Is planning some kind of terrorist activity. You're going to see, we haven't gotten deep into the evidence yet. And is watching YouTube videos featuring Hebrew Israelites, this one specifically called "Hebrew Israelites Know White People in Heaven." Detectives connected the ideology presented in the video to a 2019 mass shooting in New Jersey. Now, this is a new step, boys and girls. This is a new step. We have seen multiple times where somebody gets caught for something, they're doing something, okay, right? And it's like, hey, this ideology is Islamic, and they connect it to that, right? We've seen that before, right? It's not been as frequent, although maybe one other time, depending on how you kind of weigh it out. It's not been as frequent that you see, detectives are connecting the ideology to a Hebrew Israelite terroristic act. So my point is, because of what happened in Jersey, the Hebrew Israelites of the One West variety have put themselves on the map with law enforcement in a new kind of way. And the fact is, he really did have this video up. And what's interesting is you can actually see it on the computer. If you zoom in on the picture of the cover image I used for this particular live stream, you actually can even see it, okay? By the way, where is everybody? I'm looking here at the comments, and for some reason my comments have stopped populating. And so I don't know what I need to do. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to shut down the comments and see if I bring them back up. Will I be able to see you again? Yeah. Can someone drop a comment just so I can know you guys are here and stuff? I don't know what's going on. Okay, so this is a new step, boys and girls, all right? But it's a fact that Hebrew Israelites are going to have to deal with. Okay, thank you, Nate. Shout out to Nate. And I'm glad, again, that these gentlemen were awarded for what they did. Don't get me wrong. I know some people are going to take things I say the wrong way. But I'll tell you who else who needs to be awarded is D. New. Yes, I'm taking a little sidetrack. And for you in the audience who are true blue Street Squad supporters, you can put 2 and 2 together. Well, I can say some of it. Basically, it looks like perhaps the theme song of Islamicize Me was getting caught up by the algorithm noticing it, right? Meaning the beginning of every Islamicize Me episode begins with a whatever it is. All 32 episodes have that. That intro is actually the ISIS theme song. People are like, that's kind of catchy, right? There was never a problem before, but that's what we utilize. That background music is the ISIS theme song, right? It appears that that was making every single Islamicize Me episode get flagged by the algorithm. I think changes have been made, perhaps in light of recent events. D New, God bless her soul, on, was it Friday or Saturday? I think it was Friday. Went through all of Islamicize Me and took out all the intros so it could stop creating that problem. Yes, Nate, he is getting flagged too. Nate, yes, he is getting flagged too for the exact same thing. But he doesn't have DNU on his side like we do. And DNU went through and took it out of everything. Now, will that fix all our problems or remove certain things that have happened on the channel, Nate? And you know what I mean by that probably. No, but it definitely saves a lot of things. And since that happened, we haven't got any problems since then. Big deal. She deserves an award, a cookie, a raise, a whole lot of stuff. No joke. Shout out to brother Phil Fox in the live chat. Everyone, please subscribe to Phil Fox's YouTube channel. He does great work. What's up, brother? It's good to see you, man. I know you've been going through some things that saints are lifting you up, man, and I got love for you, bro. The premise was frozen and a search warrant was obtained. Due to the nature of the findings, officers also called in the department's counterterrorism section. A detective in the report stated they found what appeared to be components to make pressure plate improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. As officers processed the disturbing scene, they noticed the residence was rigged with the explosive devices and traps that placed every member of the unit at risk, said the host of the LVMPD award ceremony on Thursday. It was apparent the suspect was planning an act of terrorism in the immediate future. There's a picture of the detectives. Detectives and officers are awarded for their work in a case in 2020 at LVMPD headquarters on August 19, 2021. I think I said gentlemen, but excuse my misstep. There is a lady present as well, and so thank you for your service as well to her. It's not just dudes; she's in there as well, and so thank you. The detective wrote that he immediately recognized the components in the garage to be very similar to what foreign terrorist organizations use to target and kill U.S. and allied military personnel. Now, again, that's true. I don't doubt the expertise here, right? I don't doubt that aspect. But it's also interesting the way things are worded, right? It specifically evokes a certain thing where you're like, oh, that's the same kind of thing they use over there, right? I mean, it's interesting connections. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's just explosives that people use. The report detailed the components, which detectives said were used in the construction of explosive devices and explosive material. Now, this is what's interesting. Listen to this. Written across the top of the painting was Arabic script, the detective wrote. The script was translated by a detective, a fluent Arabic speaker, who informed me the script said, "One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter." Huh. Now, that's a thing people say, and there's a certain level of truth to that. But at the same time, it doesn't relativize all morality, right? Sometimes people misuse the element of truth in that, right? You know, were the Americas rebels? Were the Americans, during the Revolutionary War, as it's called, or the War for Independence, were they rebels who should be killed for treason and sedition? Or were they freedom fighters, true patriots for the country? What's your perspective on that? Things like that. All right. Continue on. In the garage, detectives said they located a 3D printer and items that appeared to be firearms and firearm parts produced with the printer. Based on the items in the garage, detectives had reason to believe that Lacey Walther was in the process of acquiring weapons and material for use in carrying out an ideologically motivated mass casualty attack, they said. Now, look, a picture of bin Laden that's saying, this guy is basically a freedom fighter. That's clearly the implication by the Arabic script, right? A picture of bin Laden basically calling him a freedom fighter, plus IED components plus 3D, weapons, 3D printed weapons. Okay, there's definitely something there, isn't there, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, there is. The Hebrew Israelite video is just one element of it, but that's fascinating as well. Continuing on. Detectives also requested a warrant for Walther's notebooks, papers, or other literature that would show his motivation and ideology. Details of those items were not included in the report. Walther faced 26 charges of the incident. He's expected in district court again on September 2nd and being held in Clark County Detention Center. Now, that's the first story, but the story is not over, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? Court records show inside garage of Las Vegas man suspected in terror plot. So now this is Kim Passoff. This is August 24th. That's when it's posted and updated as well. Now we actually see some of the details here, okay? So like a lot of times with these things, more comes out as it goes along, okay? Inside the home of a terror suspect, Fox 5 obtains evidence presented to grand jury. Court records released in Las Vegas man's suspected terror plot included video of the shooting that started the discovery, photos of the man's garage, and writing from his home. Don't go anywhere, folks. This is Street Apologist Live, and we're talking about a man who has been accused of a terrorist plot in Las Vegas, and the man apparently was driven partially, we know for certain to some extent, some of Islamic ideology, or at least inspired by bin Laden, but also in some way influenced by Hebrew Israelism because he's watching their videos. Now, there's other things that they talk about as well, so it appears he has multiple influences in this, and this is what makes this so interesting. He's not your average everyday jihadi. If he can be indeed called that. He's almost like this kind of new we talked about syncretism, which is the blending of multiple ideologies into something essentially that is new. And when you look at 2021, you see more and more syncretism when it comes to religion and ideology. He's almost like an a terrorist of a syncretistic variety. Islam, Hebrew Israelism, and other type of elements in there as well. It's very fascinating. Hey, Warrior Woman, shout out to Marcia Martin. Much love. We have the real squad in the house. We're only missing a few. If you are watching on Twitter, shout out to you, because there is a Twitter live element as well. But at the same time, to the folks on Twitter, I can't see your comments unless they don't pop up on the screen. Actually, I can go look on there right now. And so I can look and see. I don't see any comments on Twitter, but anyways, you can also watch on Twitter. It's right there on Twitter Live, so it's another way to check it out as well. Okay. On September 22nd, 2020, home surveillance video presented in court shows a masked man trying to open the doors of two cars parked on the driveway and then gunfire near Alexander Road and Rainbow Boulevard. Police reported Lacey Walther admitted to opening fire in his neighborhood near the North Las Vegas airport, shooting at a man he said was trying to break into his home. Police reported when they arrived and started questioning Walther, he became uncooperative. So there's a picture of the garage. Don't worry, you're going to see more. And there's a bin Laden, as they call it, shrine. Really, it's just a painting or some sort, right? They got a search warrant for his home. They got a search warrant. Who wrote this? What's wrong with you people? Shouldn't it be like they acquired or they obtained? They got? My English 101 teacher at community college would have totally got on me if I put they got. Am I the only one who's bothered by this? Journalism, state, I guess they're probably mainly a TV station, so whatever. They're not really like print journalists, but geez, they got a search warrant. Oh my goodness. They got a search warrant for his home and were stunned. What they discovered inside? Shouldn't it be they were stunned with what they discovered inside? Just left that out, that preposition, whatever, okay. Pictures from inside his garage show a painting of Osama bin Laden on the wall. His computer open to a YouTube video claiming white people cannot get into heaven. Now, I'm glad the first article actually gave the real title. It would have been a lot more difficult if we only had this subject, right? But isn't that fascinating? He's sitting around watching One West Hebrew Israelite videos as well. It's just bizarre. Apparently, when they got the arrest, by the time they came and got him, right? Like, yo, He's watching Hebrew Israelite videos. Because why is it open right at that time, right? The last video this man watched before he got arrested was a Hebrew Israelite video, okay? That's not insignificant, people. It's not insignificant. And guns with untraceable 3D printed parts along with the 3D printer. There was also a notebook full of his ideas, instructions and drawings of how to make bombs, concepts for weaponized drones, how to poison people with neurotoxins, and even a shopping list of materials with prices. Some of the items were scratched off as if they had already been purchased. Walther's target and when he was planning on using the weapons he was amassing remains unclear. Metro officers and detectives with the LVMPD counterterrorism section were honored last week for their work. In this case, Walther was expected in district court again on September 2nd. Now, my guess is, we're going to see more about this because it's going to go to court. And so more may come out. I'm going to show you one more story here. This is from the I-Team. Las Vegas terror suspect had painting of Osama bin Laden on the wall. Various bomb-making components found at home. Police say man was in the process of carrying out terror attack. All right, so let's read this. This is the last story I'm going to be reading as far as this goes. All right. By David Charnes. So this is the most recent one. I went in order here. So, I've done a little bit of, I planned a little bit here, right? You know what I'm saying? We're going in chronological order. You see that, right? Okay. Oh, I hate when it does that. Sorry. It's got to bring it back down so we can make sure we can see it. Oh, don't worry, because I want you guys to be able to see this, right? Yeah, Marcia Martin says she's cringing. So apparently they teach the Australians real English, too. They teach you guys real English out there? She's probably like, what? Do they teach the Americans real English? Las Vegas, KLAS, Metro Police detectives found artwork of former Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Artwork of, it almost is like, wait, did he draw the picture? Right? Components for explosive devices and other bomb-making materials inside a Las Vegas home last year. Evidence obtained by the I-Team showed. Police arrested Lacey Walther, 27, in September 2020. But details of what police call a terror plot were not widely released until a ceremony to commend the investigators involved last week. On September 22nd, 2020, Walther called 911 to report a person who was attempting to burglarize cars in his driveway. Now, why do they got to give away the guy's driveway? I'm not going to dox him. The call lasted only a few seconds and Walther hung up. You can actually hear the audio to the call. A few minutes later, Walther called 911 again, saying he had fired his gun at the suspect who ran out of the area. Video shown to a grand jury shows Walther standing in the driveway and aiming his gun at a person walking on the other side of the road. Neighborhood watch! Neighborhood watch! Walther screams to the man seconds before he fires his gun. Investigators said, "We're going to send someone over there to talk to you. Make sure the gun is put away now, okay?" A dispatcher later told Walther in the second 911 call. "Did they need to see it? Should I give it to them?" Walther responded. It's funny that he's like, wait, I want to call the cops. Hey, listen, just a word of advice to any future terrorist out there, okay? Not that I want you to be successful, but, consider this a free sign of Christian love. Whether you're a Hebrew Israelite terrorist, which apparently is a category that is emerging with some validity to it, or an Islamic terrorist, or anything else in between, all right? Don't call the police and to where they're going to have to come to your house. And, if you live with your mom apparently doesn't know that you're planning all this stuff. So she lets them into the garage, which is where apparently you're doing all this stuff. And so the police literally walk by all this stuff. It's just laid out in the open. If you are a terrorist, don't call the cops. Especially not to your house. It's just like, yo, did you not think there would be a problem with all this stuff you had out? Lacey, what are you doing, man? No, just for now, just keep it put away. But we'll send someone over to contact you. The dispatcher said they're already in the area looking around, okay? Detectives entered the home to search for anyone who may be injured and to find the gun involved. They wrote in Walther's arrest report. Inside, they found weapons and other materials they said could be used in carrying out an ideologically motivated mass casualty attack. A painting of bin Laden hung on the wall. The artwork included the phrase, "One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter," which was written in Arabic, police said. Investigators also found a 3D printer, not print, a 3D printer, they said, was being used to make gun parts and various components for incendiary explosive devices. An investigator wrote the IED components resembled what foreign terrorist organizations used to target and kill U.S. and allied military personnel. And there is the garage. Let me make myself real small here so you can see the garage. Let's take a look at the garage together so you can tell it's a garage, everyone, right? Obviously. There is a painting of Osama bin Laden. You see it? Right where I am. I'm going to move myself and then you'll see it. It's right beside me. There is a painting of Osama bin Laden. All right. Now look below. See where I am now? Well, look below. Watch, I'm going to move now. Okay, I just moved. See that computer? Remember that screen, because I'm going to show you a video in a second here that shows the same video of Hebrew Israelites talking. We're going to pull it up here in a second. Over here, 3D printed gun parts and all that. By the way, someone needs to clean this garage out. I mean, did he used to be a tagger? Looks like that's a good amount of spray paint. But oh my goodness. Not exactly mastermind material here. Let's zoom in a little bit here and see. Let's get a nice close-up there of bin Laden. And also of the Hebrew Israelite video that's up there on the screen. Don't worry, I'm going to move out of the way. Just give it a second here. Just give it a second. All right, let's see. There we go. One more time. Okay, see the video? I'm going to show you that in a second. We're going to actually watch the video. It's only about 6 minutes long. There's the Hebrew Israelite video right there. You can literally see it. And there's bin Laden there. Okay, continue on with the article here. Counter-terrorism detectives also found a composition notebook filled with recipes to make bombs and other homemade devices, they said. On one page, investigators said Walther wrote about government unrest and chemicals that would irritate a person's eyes. Other pages include scientific formulas, directions to make different kinds of bombs, and a list of poisonous plants. I mean, it's sad, but isn't it like, does anyone else find some of this like a little bit funny? Like, dude is in his garage, you know, like writing about poisonous plants, watching Hebrew Israelite videos with paintings of bin Laden, something that you wouldn't even, you know, something that wouldn't, something that's not even allowable in conservative Islam, you know what I mean? Now an angel won't go into his house because there's an image. Remember that? I mean, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny. And here's a close-up of the bin Laden painting here. Which, again, is like, this is like basically haram. So I don't think this guy's like a true jihadi. I really don't. I think the kind of like, it's like almost like Che Guevara, how people like view him these days. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure homie looks to him the same way. Because what's interesting is if you look, and there's a glare on this a little bit with the lights, but right here down the bottom it says guns and ammo. And in the call that he made, he said, "I grabbed my Second Amendment." He literally referred to his gun as a Second Amendment. This is not Hebrew Israelite type speak. But notice here, I don't know if you guys can tell, this right here, I bet this dude was a tagger. Because you see this right here on the corner? That looks like a sticker that a graph artist would use. Because I know about those. You do a little what's called a throw up, like a 2-color, or it looks like this and this would be 1 color. And you can make your own stickers, and it's like this quick one line through, you know what I'm saying, that you do, like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And it looks like he's got those. Like I bet you he was a writer back in the day. You know. Anyways, I'm talking about graph writer. I'm just wondering. It's totally separate. But who knows? My point is, he could have done this himself. Like if he had some kind of graph skill, he could have done this. But I'm curious about the Arabic. You know how you got that. But there's ways you can do the Arabic as well. You know what I'm saying? But here's what it says. A photo of a painting of Osama bin Laden inside Lacey of Las Vegas garage. The photo was shown to a grand jury. Court records indicate Walther was searching for a new lawyer. The state offered Walther a plea deal of 15 years in prison, which he declined. Now, look, I don't know. Is anything he had was he not allowed to have it? You see what I'm saying? Did he have anything illegal? Did he acquire anything illegally? Even the lists he made, aren't they circumstantial? I'm not saying I don't think he is a half-baked kind of some form of syncretist terrorist in the making. But there's not a recording of him saying what he's going to do. There's not even a target mentioned in these notebooks. Look, I do think he seems like a half-baked terrorist, and he is the kind of person that could be recruited or could end up doing something. But has he done anything illegal? I don't know. Like 15 years in prison? For what exactly? Now, I know there's charges and all that, and I know they're going to try to get him to charge on the gun stuff. Because understand here, I'm trying to look at this as objectively as possible. We can disagree with someone's ideology and then still want a person's rights to be respected, and we got to really ask hard questions. So this is just me talking. Again, some of you are like, vocab's ignorant. Okay, then tell me, what exactly? What 15 years for? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they could just tell his mom to like decrease his allowance or something. Something like that maybe would be like a better punishment. What do you guys think? Someone's going to get mad. The High Team filed a request to speak with Walther from jail. Listen to this. He agreed only if 8 News paid him $5,000. I'm sorry. So clearly the man is not fully in touch with reality, right? Here he is in jail. These news, they don't pay anyone to do interviews. These news people. That's like a part of a policy. Because otherwise it'd be like constant extortion, And sure, I'll grant you an interview if you give me $5,000. I guess it's like a good start of getting a lawyer or something. But isn't it kind of funny? It's $5,000. Maybe his mom was decreasing his allowance. Maybe that's why he needed the $5,000. But here, if you look, you actually see the notebook. One of the notebooks that they're talking about, right? And it says, now this is what's interesting is what it says. And this is where it seems like there's other elements at play in his ideology. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. It says, lynch martyr for government unrest. What? Lynch martyr? So the martyr verbiage is strange. I can't believe that it wasn't mentioned. I can't believe it wasn't mentioned in any of his news reports. It shows you like how, I'm not trying to, it seems dumb. Like why wouldn't they mention it? Martyr? Like that would be the only kind of clear sign of jihad I saw. But even using the word martyr is not a guarantee that it's jihad. Because people can, especially with the word lynch. See? Anyways, isn't that fascinating? M-A-R-Y-T-O-R. Is he misspelling martyr there? We got to make sure that that's what it's saying. I see his handwriting. I bet he's an ex-grapher. He writes similar to how I write. Peppers and different kinds, alcohol 96%, con, ammonia, lemon acid, diluted sulfuric acid. He's just writing stuff down. Any other bad agent for, I can't read that what it says, for the eyes. Bad agent. I'm sorry. A little bit is funny because the government is like kind of overkill, no pun intended. Bad stuff there, and then there's the garage, and there's a picture, and there's some more bad stuff, apparently, and there's some more bad stuff, apparently, there's some other more bad stuff, apparently, and there's some other more bad stuff, apparently, there's some other more bad stuff, apparently. Again, is anything here illegal? If it is, and weaponized drone concepts. The poor gentleman, I'm not, it just says weaponized drone concepts. Like, that's all it says. You read a charge somebody, I don't know, man. Poison plants in Nevada. But I want to know what's redacted. Something redacted there. Letter bomb using a clothespin, good to use. A pizza box could also be used. So this is from his notebook, right? This is what we're going over here. Showing the measurements there. Apparently, dude's got a blade. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen. There is a blade there as well. I'm fascinated by the concept of 3D guns. Isn't that a fascinating concept? Walther faces the following charges. Okay, let's read about this. Attempted murder with the use of a deadly weapon. Okay, who is he trying to murder? I don't know. Discharging a firearm at or into an occupied structure, 7 counts. That has to do with when he was shooting the guy getting away. That just seems like we're just trying to throw the book at him because, like, I don't know. You're not just allowed to do that. Discharging a firearm at or into an occupied vehicle. Well, he wasn't doing that on purpose, right? Manufacturing and or possessing an exclusive or insider device. So apparently that seems like they could get him on that, right? Doesn't it? Possession of an explosive or insider device in or near a public or private area. That seems like, okay, there's where we go. Because, again, I'm just someone's going to be like, okay, doesn't, okay. Anyways. Possession of a component of explosive device with the intent to manufacture an explosive. 15 counts. I wonder how that works. They're trying to say he had 15 bombs. There's no evidence presented to the grand jury or Wells arrest reports indicate he was planning a specific event. Though as investigators said, all signs show he was in the process of planning a terror attack. All right. So I wonder if any of these videos play here. You probably won't be able to hear them, but who knows? You may be able to see them. So let me try to see. Can you guys hear this? You guys can't hear it, can you? No. Tell me if you can hear this or not. I don't think you can, but I've got it up all the way. Looks like you can't. Yeah, no. Yeah, you guys can't hear it. I gotcha. Let me just... I wonder why you can't. You really should be able to. Speakers. Huh. Screen sharing. Include for shows everything. Yeah, whatever. Try one other thing here. No. System audio. Huh. Whatever it's for. Well, anyways, let me shut this down. I'm gonna shut it down. Just give me a second, guys. Well, there you can see it. I know you guys can't hear it. It's like it's playing in your earphones. Yeah, it is, but it's only playing in my earphones. That's weird. Well, I'll turn down the volume then. Turn down the volume. But there, you can kind of see the video. Maybe even turn on closed caption. Yeah, there's where the bullets hit. I mean, he straight up went into people's cars and stuff. All right, well, you get the idea about that. Okay, so you know what we should do now, ladies and gentlemen? You know what we should do now? Let me go up here. You know the basic story. Let us look at two things related to the story. So this is going to take us into Islamic territory as well as Hebrew Israelite territory a little bit. First, I would like to watch a little bit about Osama bin Laden. So everyone knows, or a lot of people know, about some of the things happening in Afghanistan as the U.S. Pulls out. And there's kind of a kerfuffle, a fiasco, where people apparently are stranded in Afghanistan. It's really sad, really tragic tale of what's happening currently right now. It affects the church. It's affecting a lot of people. Well, in a lot of ways, as far as in the national stage, Osama bin Laden, and I know he's dead now, but his ideas are not dead because they're not really his ideas per se. There's elements that you could say are unique to him per se as far as carrying out things. But they're ultimately Salafi Islamic ideas, aren't they? You know, what Westerners sometimes call the Wahhabist school of thought. They're essentially Salafi Islamic ideas, which is kind of Sunni Islam. So his ideas are still here. And now we have groups worse than Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and apparently ISIS-K. But bin Laden is a fascinating figure. Now, I'm not saying that because I think he's a hero, obviously, people, okay? But he's interesting, and I think the more you learn about him, it gives you a good insight into what the West calls Islamic terror, right? So what I'm going to show for you now is the very first Western news media interview of bin Laden. This interview was conducted about 4 years prior to 9/11, and I wish they would have shown more of the interview with bin Laden than they do. They don't, but they do show enough to make it very fascinating, and I want to show this. It's his first interview with Western news media. Now, why am I showing bin Laden? What I'm trying to show you here is that bin Laden himself is a perfect example of what you have when you have highly idealized jihadi types. And the stereotype that you sometimes hear is not really very accurate a lot of times. You'll hear like, oh, these people have been oppressed by the West. These people, they're poor, they're uneducated, they have nowhere else to turn, they're unemployed, they're unemployable, they can't find wives, they're stuck in the Middle East. You hear something like that. Bin Laden wasn't any of those things, really. He wasn't really any. He was rich. He was hooked up. And the first time, though, that he really rose to prominence kind of on a national stage was not in regards necessarily to America per se, but in regards to Russia, the former USSR. In the 80s, USSR had what now people call their Vietnam. That's just a way so Americans can understand it, basically. You know, Aussies, I don't know what you do, although there were some Aussies in Vietnam as well. So we have the situation where the USSR viewed Afghanistan as a strategic piece to the increase of their empire being protected and safe, and also wanting to have access to it because it's like the crossroads of multiple important things, even if the country itself is not necessarily, it's no Ireland, you know. I don't know what an ideal country would be, but you see the Emerald Isle pictures. It's definitely not that, but its location makes it important and strategic. And the USSR felt like they needed a buffer. That was their perspective. Of course, to the West, just looked just like more aggressive communist expansion. And of course, both things are basically true, right? Well, there is a group of people called the Freedom Fighters, the Mujahideen. I always have trouble pronouncing it. And within that, there is a group called the Arab Afghans. That's sort of the technical designation. And they're fighting the USSR off. And since our eye at the time in the West was not so much on Islamic terror, it was more on communism. We're still in a Cold War state there in the 80s, under Reagan and whatever. We're like, well, we need to worry about that. And so now there's a common story about the CIA basically directly training bin Laden and giving him money and weapons training. There doesn't seem to be evidence to that from what that seems to be essentially a myth. But the idea that these freedom fighters, and that's even what the U.S. was kind of calling on back then, as my understanding. There is evidence, of course, that there was money being given to them and weapons training. That's true. But that doesn't mean bin Laden directly. And you're going to find a little bit about this in this interview I'm playing. So the reason I'm showing this is this story in Vegas is sad, but it's also interesting because it really details two things that we deal with on this channel, Islam and Hebrew Israelism. Here you have somebody who at least idealized bin Laden and yet also was watching Hebrew Israelite videos, but doesn't actually seem to be a convert to Islam. But I want to take this time to look at what did bin Laden believe? So watch this. I think you will find this video very enlightening. Please pay attention to this as we look more into bin Laden, as we look at the first interview he ever granted to the West.
We begin with the story of a shadowy multimillionaire who has declared a holy war against the United States. To some in the Islamic world, he is a hero. To the United States government, though, he is a terrorist, a real threat to the lives of U.S. troops. He is Osama bin Laden, and Impact's Peter Arnett takes us into his hideaway and into his mind with this first ever television interview.
Amidst these remote mountains of Afghanistan are the various hiding places of one of the world's most wanted men, Osama bin Laden.
We declared a jihad, a holy war, against the United States government because it is unjust, criminal, and tyrannical.
The U.S. State Department calls him one of the most significant financial sponsors of Islamic extremism in the world.
He is a major terrorist financier, and with a large fortune of his own, he has bankrolled terrorist groups and individuals all over the world.
The State Department links the 41-year-old bin Laden to Ramzi Youssef, alleged mastermind of the World Trade Center bombing, New York. An attempted bombing of U.S. troops in 1992, Yemen. Terrorist training camps in Sudan and Afghanistan. Islamic terrorist groups in Egypt and Algeria.
Younger generation, Islamic, especially those Islamic fundamentalists, they are looking for a hero. And Mr. bin Laden fit the bill.
In Western intelligence circles, bin Laden is best known for this document, a call for jihad or holy war against the thousands of U.S. soldiers now stationed in Saudi Arabia. That call to jihad came after 2 bombings of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia. The first in Riyadh in 1995, 7 dead. The second in Dhahran in 1996, 19 dead, hundreds injured. To support his holy war, sources estimate bin Laden has up to $500 million. To execute the jihad, bin Laden has thousands of committed followers inside Saudi Arabia.
They are either direct followers taking direct command and order from bin Laden, or they are small cells and groups who believe bin Laden is a godfather. His message is almost like a religious order.
Most of those followers fought alongside bin Laden in an earlier jihad, the 1980s war in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union. Afghanistan drew thousands of volunteers like these from around the Islamic world. They learned how to handle weapons and explosives. They became known as the Afghan Arabs. Osama bin Laden left his comfortable life in Saudi Arabia to become a leader of the Afghan Arabs. Informed estimates put their numbers between 12,000 and 20,000 men. Bin Laden's victories against the Soviets were well publicized in Saudi Arabia.
Because of that, a lot of people wanted to participate in jihad, and they thought that Osama is an important figure. But he was not only willing to put his money, but he actually gone there himself and fought himself and get hurt.
After the Afghan war, bin Laden became disillusioned with the Saudi regime, deeming it insufficiently Islamic. He moved to Sudan. 5 years later, under U.S. and Saudi pressure, bin Laden was expelled from Sudan. A year ago, bin Laden took refuge here in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is perhaps the only country in the world that will accept him. Our quest to meet bin Laden begins in Peshawar, Pakistan, and then across the Khyber Pass to Jalalabad, Afghanistan, where we wait for several days. Finally, bin Laden's media advisor arrives. We are allowed to take our lights and sound equipment, but not our camera. There have been assassination attempts against bin Laden, and his security force worries our camera might contain a tracking device that would give away his location. The interview will be conducted with their camera. As best as we can reconstruct it, this is the route that we took to meet bin Laden. We are put in a minivan with curtained windows and drive west. As night falls, we move to a four-wheel drive vehicle that makes its way up a rough mountain path past checkpoints manned by heavily armed men. We are searched and electronically scanned to ensure that we're not carrying a tracking device. About 5,000 feet up is a small hut. We are allowed about an hour and a half with bin Laden. We have submitted questions in advance. He agrees to answer most of them, but does not allow follow-up questions. Mr. bin Laden, you have declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The US government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we believe the US is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon and Iraq. Due to its subordination to the Jews, the arrogance of the United States regime has reached the point that they occupied Arabia, the holiest place of the Muslims, who are more than 1 billion people in the world today. For this and other acts of aggression and injustice, we have declared jihad against the US.
Is the jihad directed against the US government or United States troops in Arabia? What about U.S. civilians in Arabia or the people of the United States?
We have focused our declaration of jihad on striking at the US soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina. In our religion, it is not permissible for any non-Muslim to stay in Arabia. Therefore, even though American civilians are not targeted in our plan, they must leave. We do not guarantee their safety.
When this guy delivers his statements attacking the U.S. presence or his call for jihad, he is justifying these actions in very explicit Quranic, Islamic terms with a law. It's like a careful legal brief.
The U.S. government charges bin Laden with supporting terrorist activities throughout the Middle East.
The US today has set a double standard, calling whoever goes against its injustice a terrorist. It wants to occupy our countries, steal our resources, impose agents on us to rule us, and then wants us to agree to all this. If we refuse to do so, it says we are terrorists. When Palestinian children throw stones against the Israeli occupation, the US says they are terrorists. Whereas when Israel bombed the United Nations building in Lebanon, definitely knows no words. Our people in Arabia will send him messages without words, because he does not understand words. If there is a message that I may send through you, I address the mothers of the American troops. To these mothers I say, if they are concerned for their sons, then let them object to the US government's policy.
But in Afghanistan, bin Laden is beyond the reach of U.S. law enforcement. The country is dominated by the Taliban, a movement of religious students turned warriors who have imposed their harsh interpretation of Islam. The Taliban have recently declared that bin Laden is their guest, providing he does not attack other nations. But bin Laden may have other ideas. What are your future plans?
You'll see them and hear about them in the media, God willing.
Turn your radio up. Whoa. Radio time. Whoa, whoa. You're now listening to Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. On the radio. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Whoa. On the radio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if this is going to be a part 2 or if it's continue on the video where we're already live. Someone in the comments, please let me know what you guys can see and not see. It's not clear on my end, but it just knocked us off. So here we are again to continue with this show. So there you saw a little interview with bin Laden. The reason we're discussing bin Laden today is recently, actually about a week ago, it was disclosed that in Las Vegas, a man named Lacey Walther had been discovered to be involved. Apparently, he was solo in a terrorist plot of some sort, and he was discovered in the fall winter of last year, and now about a year later, it's been disclosed that this is the fact here in Vegas, right? And we've been talking about this because this story just came out. And what is interesting about this man, Lacey Walther, the man who was suspected of the terror plot there in Vegas, is that he had some kind of admiration for Osama bin Laden, so that's why we're looking into him. And he also, the terror suspect, was watching Hebrew Israelite videos in his garage where he was also making IEDs, had body armor, and was making 3D printed untraceable weapons. So don't know what's going on with this guy, but we do know that a terror suspect is watching Hebrew Israelite videos. Is he a jihadi? Can't tell, don't know. I don't think so based upon what I can tell. But since he does have admiration for bin Laden, we're looking a little bit into what bin Laden himself was about. And it's interesting as we look at the writings of Osama bin Laden, he followed the example of Muhammad, the one he called a prophet, and he actually called Americans to Islam. This is after 9/11. A lot of people don't know, but he wrote something in November 2002 called Letter to the American People, right? And in that, here's what he said. This is a quote from bin Laden. What are we calling you to do, and what do we want from you? 1, the first thing that we are calling you to is Islam. So imagine, after 9/11, he's like, hey, you want to join my religion? It is the religion of jihad in the way of Allah, so that Allah's word and religion reigns supreme. Allah's word and religion may only reign supreme in this view that bin Laden had when the fullness of Islamic law is imposed and enforced in society. That's what has to happen. So jihadist theorists and groups like ISIS, ISIS-K, Al-Qaeda, they have declared that they have an intention to unify all the Islamic nations of the world under a single rule for the Caliph. We have done a show on this with Robert Spencer about this. I think it was called What is ISIS and What's a Caliph? Could someone find that? Maybe put in the YouTube search bar, Caliph, CALIPH. And I'd like to see if that show is available because it would be good to link that up there. Historically, within Islam, the Caliph was essentially viewed as a successor to Muhammad. So he's a political leader of all Muslims, the Ummah, or at least to Sunnis. Because remember, it's part of the Sunni Shia problem there is, the disagreements about successor, who is going to be next in line. I can see you, Street Apologist Radio, whoever's running the channel that right now. I have a suspicion who is, but I can see you as you are testing. Okay. So it got abolished in 1924, the caliphate, because there actually was one. But a lot of contemporary jihadists, they think that that's when the woes of the Islamic world began. And they want to restore the caliphate and unite the Ummah behind it and reimpose Sharia on all Islamic countries because they don't view that is currently happening. Thank you, Warrior. Well, what is the title of that show? So you found it. Thank you very much, Warrior Woman. Thank you, Marcia. I appreciate that. And that's what they want to do. And if you look in Saudi Arabia and Iran, Sharia is only partially enforced, if at all. I don't even really think you could say it's fully enforced in Saudi Arabia and Iran, and even those would be different interpretations because one's Sunni, one's Shia. And so these modern jihadis, what they want to do is they want to carry Sharia not only to Islamic places, but that's where they might say we should begin, but to non-Muslim states, basically by force under the banner of jihad as well. And it's interesting there you see Osama bin Laden inviting, right, the Muslims, inviting those in the West to become Muslims, right? And notice there, one of bin Laden's main issues, okay, thank you, Marcia. Now, I don't know, oh, that's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. I see your comment. I don't know why. Well, hey, use the SAR. No problem, bro. I'm reading your comment, Nate. No sweat. One of the things that you noticed there that bin Laden had a problem with in the interview was the occupation of Americans in Islamic lands. One of the main issues is American boots being in the land of Saudi Arabia any time, which they were during the liberating of Kuwait, right? And there's a man named Sheikh Abdullah Azm. He died in '89, but he was one of the founders of Al Qaeda. He assumed that the Islamic State he fought to restore would collect the jizya from dhimmis. Now, that means get a tax from second-class religionists, all right, Christians and Jews. He wrote a book called Defense of the Muslim Lands. And in that, he discussed various categories of jihad. And just like, traditional Islamic theology, here's what he held as he explained offensive jihad as an obligation to the Islamic community. Here's what he said. The ulama, that's Muslim scholars, have mentioned that this type of jihad is for maintaining the payment of jizya. Now, where am I getting some of this from? The Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam and the Crusades by our friend Robert Spencer. That is a book that I could recommend to you, and you can find the sources. He will point you to the sources in every instance so you can find out more about them yourself. Now, if you want something more primary, now it is in English, but it's been translated by Raymond Ibrahim, who speaks Arabic, right? The Al-Qaeda Reader. The Al-Qaeda Reader. And this book actually has primary documents, translated, of course, by Al-Qaeda and Jihad, right? And it's very fascinating what is said in these places, in this book. I've got this book so much marked up all over, especially the parts that are by bin Laden. So let me read you some quotes. This is an essay now that I'm going to read to you from that is either authorized or written directly by Osama bin Laden himself. And remember, if you watch that interview, it said bin Laden is proceeding to indict the West almost like a lawyer. So he views this as a very just cause and is showing here's what the West is guilty of, or America specifically. And notice the way he ties it in with Jews and Israel. So much so, if you remember the interview I just played. But listen to this. Listen to what he says here. The Islam preached by the advocates of interreligious dialogue does not contain loyalty and enmity, nor does it contain jihad, nor boundaries established by the Sharia, since it is these very doctrines that worry the West the most. Indeed, the essence of our problem with the West revolves around these principles. Bin Laden, in a sense, is being presuppositional here. He is recognizing the basic antithesis between Sunni Salafi Islam that he would hold to and what the West says that they hold to, right? Notice that, because what he is going to say in this essay is that that's been titled "Modern Islam is a Prostration to the West." Fascinating. And it's interesting what Ibrahim says here. He says this: in reality, however, the American letter is not as aggressive as Al-Qaeda makes it to be. Many tolerant, even apologetic statements, such as the following, are for obvious reasons never quoted in Al-Qaeda's essay. Well, I'm not going to read that. Well, basically, what Ibrahim is saying is that when bin Laden and Al-Qaeda are criticizing other Muslims for being too moderate in their view of the West, Ibrahim is saying, if you actually read some of the documents that bin Laden is interacting with and criticizing, Ibrahim is saying these documents by so-called moderate Muslims are not actually that apologetic and not that moderate. So Ibrahim is making the point, like, bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and folks like him sort of had a radical view where it's no compromise at all. But if you read some of the compromise statements by some of the people bin Laden is characterizing, they're actually somewhat radical themselves. Here's what Ibrahim says: nor is the Saudi letter as prostrating as one would expect from the outraged tone of Al-Qaeda. And then it goes on to list some of the Saudi assertions there to show you that. Now, let me show you a little bit, though, things that directly bin Laden wrote, okay? Okay, this is a fascinating thing. This is called Why We Are Fighting for You. And listen to what Al-Qaeda says here. This is bin Laden apparently writing. Quote, there are only three choices in Islam: either willing submission or payment of the jizya, thereby physical, though not spiritual, submission to the authority of Islam, or the sword, for it is not right to let him live. Him is an infidel. Notice bin Laden is very stark. He's saying within Islam, the unbeliever has three options, right? You see what he's saying? That's why there can't be any coexistence, basically. He's saying you willingly submit, that means you convert, or jizya, so it's a physical, even if you haven't spiritually recognized the authority of Islam because you had to pay a tax, or he's saying you die. Do you understand? Very stark. But this is really the way Muhammad operated. Bin Laden understood Muhammad, basically. Quote, I'm quoting bin Laden again here. This is from the Al-Qaeda Reader. You can see this all here. The matter is summed up for every person alive. Either submit or live under the suzerainty of Islam or die. Thus it behooves the Saudi signatories to clarify this matter to the West. Otherwise, they will be like those who believe in part of the book while rejecting the rest. Do you see that? Bin Laden is saying, you Saudi officials and those who capitulate to the West in any way are like people who only believe some of the Quran and not all of it. Is he wrong? And here's what's interesting, though. He's very harsh towards these Saudi people he views as compromising, but when he speaks to the West directly, because remember, he invites the West to Islam, listen to what he says about Islam. This is a bin Laden quote about Islam. Quote, Islam is a religion of showing kindness to others, establishing justice between them, granting them their rights, and defending the oppressed and the persecuted. Isn't that funny? Even bin Laden himself was trying to make Islam look attractive to the West. Oh boy. Listen to this opening Quranic verse. Right here. This is Surah 20. This is Surah 22:39. Permission to fight is given to those who are attacked, for they have been wronged, and surely Allah is able to give them victory. And then listen to this. Let me show you a couple of the things that bin Laden wrote here. So this is from page 22. Listen to what he says here. I'm going to read directly from it, okay, at this point, and you tell me when you want me to stop. So this is me reading bin Laden essay, Moderate Islam as a Prostration to the West. So this shows you the mindset. Nate asked, what does Al-Qaeda mean? Al-Qaeda means the base. So when you have al in Arabic, you know that's the definite article. So it literally means the base. The base. Listen to this, what he says. Praise be to Allah, who said, say, O people of the book, let us reach an agreement that we worship none beside Allah, nor assign partners to him, nor take each other as masters in place of Allah. If they refuse, say, bear witness that we have submitted. So he opens his letter, quoting Surah 364. And prayers and peace be upon his prophet, who said, curse of Allah be upon the Jews and Christians. They took the tombs of their prophets as places of worship. End quote. So he quotes Muhammad there from the Hadith. At a time when Muslims are being drained daily of their blood, honor, possessions, and lands all over the world at the hands of the hateful Christians led by that leader of international infidelity, America, a declaration from the Saudi intellectuals has appeared. This declaration is the epitome of cowardice and defeatism and disingenuousness, for it presents a few truths while abandoning the majority. So he's criticizing Saudi intellectuals. This is Osama bin Laden. Notice also how articulate he is. Notice that. Notice. All right, here we go. The message from the intellectuals titled, How Can We Coexist?, which has truly grieved us, is a response to a message issued by the Crusader intellectuals and priests titled, What We're Fighting For. And after Islam was made manifest in glory during its first centuries, its adherents are now possessed as slaves by the infidels all around the world. So at this time, a message comes out to us today from the descendants of the original forebears, assuming that we urgently need to find a way to live in peace with the Crusaders, but there is no power or ability to save in Allah. I take issue with this declaration on many counts and mean to reveal its many faults. I do not claim to pause at every error, for those far exceed what I focus on. Nonetheless, I do take issue with a number of them. Whatever I do rightly is from Allah. Whatever I err is from myself and Satan. Osama bin Laden saying whenever I make an error, it's from Satan. It sounds like Muhammad, doesn't he? Isn't this fascinating? This is Osama bin Laden. And the reason I'm reading this is just to give you an idea of his mindset as you see his defiance to the West and the way that our friend we're talking about today sort of takes that as a cue. The declaration came at most inopportune time. Indeed, we had expected from one such as these a speech to incite the zeal of the men of the Islamic Ummah to defend their religion, way of life, and blood, which the Jews and Crusaders spill all around the world. But instead of us finding messages empowering the world's helpless through all legitimate Islamic means, we find that they have lost their way and issued a statement that, in short, consists of entreaties and supplications to the West, urging them to converse with us, and this after they first acknowledged their values and ideologies in their entirety, while shying away from evoking the truths valued by the religion Islam and its foundations. So notice Osama bin Laden is articulate and thinking deeply about these things, to be frank with you. The declaration is proof of defeatism from its very name alone, how we can coexist, as if one of the foundations of our religion is how to coexist with infidels. Bin Laden saying, what are you talking about? How can we coexist? One of the foundations of Islam is not how to live properly with infidels in a coexistence way. What are you talking about? Isn't that, do you see this? And if they had clarified to the West how the Muslim is to coexist with the infidel based on Quranic verses and hadiths, then it would have been a blessed enterprise. But instead, the declaration's starting point of coexisting with the West is to approve of their ideologies and do whatever gains their favor. He's saying, hey, you guys are like kissing the West's butt over here, right? Look, I'm going to skip and talk a little bit further down here. I'm skipping, but this is all from the Al-Qaeda reader where you can read about Osama bin Laden, what he wrote himself. Nor does this defeatist declaration merely grossly distort a religion, but it possesses another aspect, the dialogue between religions or conferences seeking to unify all religions. So here, Osama bin Laden's writing against ecumenical dialogue and movements, right? See that? Nor were those who represent Islam at these conferences to discuss the foundations of the religion Islam or its particulars that separate it from every other religion. Instead, they focus on matters secondary to every religion, such as repudiating injustice, the ban on suicide, being kind to people, justice, and other matters connected to Islam but that do not conflict with other religions. He's saying, you guys are just talking about the nice parts of Islam. Do you see that? Bin Laden is kind of like, isn't he precise, though? As to what distinguishes Islam from other faiths, this they shy away from mentioning or calling attention to. Even more, they efface it, fearing lest the wrath of the West fall upon us. Listen to this. This is fascinating. This is Bin Laden. This is the last thing I'm going to read from him, okay? And then we're going to go over to Lacey again. The Islam preached by the advocates of interreligious dialogue does not contain the doctrine of loyalty and enmity, nor does it contain offensive jihad, nor boundaries established by the Sharia, since it is these very doctrines that worry the West the most, and the West already possesses certain knowledge that these fundamentals are the point of conflict with Muslims and not the other principles. Isn't that fascinating? Wait, I gotta read this other part, I'm sorry. It also advocates a dialogue among the civilizations, lest they clash. This is an infidel notion. He's saying this dialogue between Islam and the West, that's an infidel idea. This is an infidel notion imported from the West verbatim. Then there are flat-out lies directed against the Muslims that suggest that their religion agrees much that is from the West. He's saying it's a lie to say that we agree with a lot that's in the West. I mean... Don't you see this? Oh man, there's so much more that I said I was going to only read a little bit more, but I want to read so much of this. It's a fascinating essay, and he quotes the Quran and the Hadith non-stop. But here's the thing: the reason why we're looking at this today is because we're talking about Lacey Walther, a man who recently in Vegas, and we showed some of the information here. The reason why is because we're going over a little bit about what happened with him, where he's suspected of a terror plot. Let's see. So let me just show you again to kind of reset before we go to the. Paul Wahid says, "Vocab, you are enjoying reading Bin Laden too much." You know, you're probably right. You're probably right. I think you're right about that. But here's what we're doing today. Okay. Here's what we're doing today. We're supposed to be looking at this story about Lacey Walther. Okay, and we had already went over this in the beginning of this video. I'm just reminding everybody. So in Vegas recently, about a week ago, it was unveiled that the Las Vegas police and the terrorism units there had uncovered a terrorist plot of some sort by this man on your screen, Lacey Walther. And on his wall in his garage, and there's a view into it, or I believe it was, I don't think it was the other man's garage, they discovered that he had a painting of Bin Laden, and there's a bunch of other stuff that they found in there, including the dude who was making explosives, right? He's like making bombs, By the way, let me show you something here real quick. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just going to show you something real quick. You have to love kids, right? Here it is, the whole street's blocked off, right? And they're out here, the neighbors are out here, and this is like hey, one of the neighbors is basically a terrorist in the making. What's this little kid doing over here? You see him? See where I am, my screen right there, over there? He's dressing up as Spider-Man. That's what he's doing. The neighbors are all out, and the kid's like, I need to get my mask right. Because look at the kid, he's playing with his mask the whole time. Look. He's playing with his mask. He's like, Mom, help me. Why are you so distracted? You see that? You gotta love kids, like the innocence of it, right? He's like, I don't know. Maybe Lacey was a terrorist. I don't know about that, but I need to fix this mask. Maybe he was gonna stop the plot. He's like, here, there's a terrorist. He's like, well, I'll help the situation, but first I got to put on my mask. Have you trust a Spider-Man? Oh man. Anyway, so we're looking at Lacey Walther, and he admired Bin Laden. But it appears that he had issue with America in other areas, such as things connected to police brutality and whatnot. And the reason I say that is because the police had talked about he had been involved with some of the marches for BLM in Minneapolis, I believe it was. I think that's where it was. Now, I'm not drawing those lines per se, but that's not something the average jihadi would necessarily be involved with, is my point by saying that. My point is he's sort of what I'm calling a syncretist terrorist, where there's a number of different things that are driving and inspiring him. And we talked about the admiration for Osama bin Laden. It seems like almost like the way people look at Che Guevara, I mentioned earlier, where he's like sort of a symbol of standing up to the West. A symbol, because it was interesting. The quote didn't have anything to do with like bin Laden's jihadi or anything, you know, him being a Muslim. The quote that was on the picture that Lacey had in his garage of bin Laden was, "One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter." And so Lacey, it seems, you know, you have to kind of draw the dots here, who apparently was planning some terrorist plot of himself there, was like a fan of bin Laden, as Marcia mentioned there in the chat, right? Appears to be some kind of fan of bin Laden. Otherwise, why the picture, right, and all that, and the quote. And calling him a freedom fighter in essence. I mean, obviously, by the quote. But here's what's interesting. Lacey, with whatever he believed, had a number of different things going on there. And he does have somewhat of a beard, so that's interesting to know. You got to wonder, was he ever in a Hebrew Israelite camp? And the reason I ask is a few things. One is he lived with his mom. That's a common One West trait. The other thing is he was watching videos of One Westers, right? He was watching videos of One Westers in his garage when they arrested him. Isn't it fascinating? Out of all the things that could have been on his TV screen, on YouTube, there's a kid again, the Spider-Man hero. Lacey is watching. What's he watching? What's he watching? He's watching Hebrew Israelite videos. So I said, you know, let's look at that. And let's find the video that he was looking at. And let's watch it ourselves. Let's watch it ourselves, right? And so if you notice here on the screen, Ken Passeth has a grip of these pictures, right, that were presented for the grand jury to convict Lacey, because that's what's going to be happening now. They're trying to get him for 15 years, it looks like. And in the pictures, you look, and there's a Hebrew Israelite video up on the screen. And the news also mentioned it as well. There's where he's shooting. This is what set it off when he was shooting at someone that was trying to break into a car. And then he makes a phone call. And when the cops come out to see what was going on, like, why is this dude shooting all over the neighborhood? Because he put bullet holes in some of the houses and some of the cars. Then when they come out, they look into his garage and they see this dude is like setting up some bombs and stuff. You know what I mean? And he's willing to be shooting at people like in the middle of the night. Yo, like, what's up? You know? And so he was shooting at this dude, and he leaves holes in the neighbors. And then they say, what's up with your garage, bro? And when they go to arrest him, they find a Hebrew Israelite video up on the screen. And so guess what we're going to do now? The Hebrew Israelite video was titled, "No White People in the Kingdom of Heaven," or whatever. Let's watch the video. I've already got it lined up. It's only 6 minutes. We're going to interact with this, and it's interesting, the kind of video that he is watching. So just let me get it set up here while you look at the pretty pictures there. See the video right there? You can see it. It was up on the screen there. So this is these are the pictures from inside, at least. That video right there, that's the video we're going to watch. Oh, look, they paused on it. Oh, go back. I didn't realize they did that. Oh, wait, stop. Come on, man. I feel like... Oh, wow, he hadn't finished it. Oh, I wonder what other videos are up here. Oh, man, don't you wish you could see those? So that's a close-up. So look, we're looking at Lacey's computer screen, because this is some of the evidence that was presented. So if you look, it's a website called Bree Talks, and he at the time he was arrested, apparently he had made it through 4 minutes and 29 seconds of the video. Doesn't look like he had finished it. We're going to watch this exact video, but if you notice, he's got multiple tabs open, and some of them are other YouTube videos. Oh, man, wouldn't you want to know what those are? Or should you get a higher res of that? Yeah, I would want to know. I would want to know. What else was he watching? Well, let's watch that video, and that's how we'll end up today's show. There's a picture from his notebooks where you saw all that crazy stuff he had earlier. He had some pretty wild stuff in those notebooks, you remember, including drawings for drones. There's a shopping list. Glock. Invalidation pallets. I mean, this is a lot of stuff. Internal recon. He had a part where he was talking about a way to infiltrate an organization. No joke. Like, he had a whole list about how to, and then a complete mission. But what was the mission, He forgot to hit the like button, someone says, Nate says. And then it would be funny if he was watching a Street Apologist video. That would be funny, actually. So let's watch the video that he was watching. All right, here it is.
Question. Do y'all believe that no albino...
So here is Bree. She's the host of the channel. And Bree has left the Christian church. She has a video about how she left the Christian church. So Bree is not a Christian, but some of the people she's with are kind of like somewhat believers in the Bible, the ladies who appear to be her friends. But if you look over here on the left, these are 3 Hebrew Israelite gentlemen. They are of the One West variety. They use Lashawan Quadash. The gentleman has the Paleo Hebrew on his shirt there. And they've got the fringes. Now, wouldn't it be fascinating if Lacey knew one of these guys or something like that? Now, we're going to watch this together. I'm strategically placing myself over here because one of the ladies is dressed somewhat immodestly, and so I'm just going to block her out the whole time. All right, so you're not going to see her on purpose. But here's what Bree begins. This is like part 9 of their dialogue. So let's watch this together.
Question. Do y'all believe that no albinos and no white people can go to heaven?
So what about albinos and white people? So she's hearing them talk so far. She's like, so does that mean, if you're not the right color, you can't go to heaven? But she doesn't fully understand their doctrine yet. But let's see what they say.
Albinos are white skin. But you said they were cursed.
Albinos who are black just have white skin. But she actually is smarter than you might think at first, Bree, the one who runs this channel. Because she says, yeah, but earlier you said you had the curse. So apparently in some other video, they must have said that albinos were cursed in relationship to how white people started. And so she's putting it together and saying, wait, if albinos are cursed, how can they go to heaven? Actually, a good question. Yeah, because that's a common thing with Hebrew Israelites, is that white people started by cursed albinos.
They were born that way. So, can they get into heaven?
Yes, if they're black.
White people?
No.
Albinos can, yes, if they're black. She's like, okay, well, now what about white people?
No white people can get into heaven.
No white people can get in heaven. Now, watch what this guy says, stretching. You have to listen very carefully. He's going to say, well, yeah, they're going to be there, but as slaves, basically. Watch.
No white people can get into heaven.
They're going to be in heaven, but they're going to be what you think.
They're going to be in heaven, but it ain't going to be what you think. So when people say, do Hebrew Israelites think white people can go to heaven? First of all, that question doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not just about white folks for them. Remember, it's about Arabs. It's about Indians, East Indians. It's about Africans. It's about Asians, right? None of those folks are going to be in power in the kingdom, right? They'll be in slavery in some sense. So forget about just white people. Ask about everybody, right? First of all, with the One West type, okay? But they're going to be there. So they don't have this concept of heaven like in the same way Christians do, which they usually don't understand the Christian concept of heaven. But they have this idea of an earthly kingdom, which is basically just things now just reversed. And so they're going to own slaves.
Okay, so
let me ask a counter question to that one. Do you feel like God loves everybody?
So he's like, well, let me ask you a question. Do you think God loves everybody?
God is all love.
I do.
She says, I do. God is all love.
Let me read you a verse real quick.
So she asked him a question, and then she's like, yeah, God loves everybody. He's like, well, let me read you a verse. So the weird thing is the verse he goes to is not exactly have to do with the question he just asked. But let's go there with him.
Now, is that in that book?
Nope, it's in the Old Testament, and then I want you to get Romans 9:13 in the New Testament.
Oh, wait, that one does. Okay, I thought he was going to another place at first. Okay, this will relate to it. Excuse me. Sorry.
So, originally, Esau is the so-called white man.
So there's just a massive One West assumption. Originally, Esau is a so-called white man. That can never be proved by a One Wester. Never. They can never prove it or demonstrate it. No one thought that. It's ridiculous that a small tribe in the Middle East has essentially left the Middle East area, and someone's going to say, you shouldn't call it the Middle East. You know the area of the world I'm talking about. And now has populated Europe and America instead. Where's all the white people there now? They would say, well, the Jews, Israel. But those are folks mainly who have come back recently. You know, it's just ridiculous.
He is a so-called white man because if you put a white man out in the sun...
Because, now listen to the reasoning. Because if you put a white man out in the sun...
What color he going to turn? He's going to turn red, right? Red.
What color is he going to turn? He's going to turn red. So put a white man out in the sun, he becomes red. First of all, not all white folks do this, right? So this is a silly argumentation. And he's going to go on to say, well, they turn red, that's because that's their original color. Well, hold on, wait. How is it you have to go in the sun and get sunburnt to show your original color?
Okay, that's his original color. And the Bible is described as a red man. Right. Edom means red.
Oh, Edom means red? Edom means red, everybody. Edom means red. So that must mean that every time that anybody in the Bible is described with that terminology, that they would need to be white, right? Right? Wouldn't that be correct, guys? If that's what he's saying. So I just want to show you this. They're going from Genesis 25:25 that says the first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, so they called his name Esau. Esau. All right. What does that mean? What does that mean? Let's see. Let's take a look here. When you go and look at the Hebrew for Esau, it's a form of the past participle of another word, also, or asa, right? Which means do, make, rot, commit, deal, offer, execute, keep, show, prepare, do so, perform, get, dress, make, maintain, something like that. In the original sense of handling. All right. Now, continuing on, it shows all the times it occurs. What is it? Eldest son of Isaac and Rebekah, twin brother of Jacob, sold the birthright for food when he was hungry, and the divine blessing went to Jacob, progenitor of the Arab peoples. And that's what this says in Strong's, but is that evidenced to an extent? Additional information, Esau equals hairy. So they're not talking about that meaning red. What are they talking about there? The first came out red. Which is also translated what? Ruddy or red. Admoni. Huh. Well, that's fascinating. So let's look that up there and see what's going on with that. Because here's what I want to tell you. It's in the Bible other times, and you guys have known this if you follow these issues for a while. You guys have already seen this. There's other times where it also appears. Okay. One time is Lamentations 4:7, which says her princes were purer than snow, whiter than milk. Their bodies were more ruddy than coral. The beauty of their form was like sapphire. Lamentations 4:7 specifically used the same word that they're saying means red, and it means therefore a white person. But here, who's being described in Lamentations 4:7? The princes of Israel. It says they're purer than snow, whiter than milk. Their bodies were more ruddy than coral. Now, I've done a whole thing on this. What it's saying is that they were healthy looking, they shine in, they had that glow. That's what has to do with the purer than snow, whiter than milk. It's not saying they had white skin, but then it says their bodies were more ruddy than coral. So it literally is describing before they became basically living in the dirt, because they now have fallen. That's what the book of Lamentations is all about. Prior to that, it says their bodies were more ruddy than coral. So that is describing color. So if they're saying it's red, here the Israelite princes are described as being red as white people. But it doesn't mean that. Ruddy than coral. So if you think about coral, and there's a question about how to translate that Hebrew word as well, but it's like brown with a reddish tint. That's exactly what it's like. So when the Bible describes that, it's like this dark red that's not like red out of a crayon box. It's like brown with a red tint. So it's basically describing the way a lot of Middle Eastern peoples look. Because you also have it being described as war shields. Nahum 2:3, the shield of his mighty men is red. Ruddy shields. Doesn't seem like they had straight up red shields there. Here's an interesting one. It even described as fermented wine. Do not look at wine when it is red. Now, even you think about that, that's not a bright red, but it's sort of reddish there. Isaiah 1:18, it appears as well. Though they are red like crimson, I believe is the phrase there. Yeah, they are red like crimson. Same thing. So that's an interesting use or example, isn't it? But here's what's fascinating. Just like Esau is described that way, there are also other biblical figures described that way. And I know I'm kind of going on a rabbit trail just discussing this, but let me show you where. 1 Samuel chapter 16. Never forget this. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward, and Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So who's being described as ruddy there, ladies and gentlemen? David. So it's translated different in English, but the underlying Hebrew word is the same. And so here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. If ruddy means red for white people, then how can you then turn around when it's describing the princes of Israel and David himself with the same word and say it doesn't mean red for white people? Because it doesn't. It has to do with the tint of a skin that's brown. So it appears that it's kind of like a healthy looking kind of skin. It appears to be that because it can't just say he's handsome, because handsome's already described. Beautiful eyes, can't be about that. But some people who are like the Anglo-Israelites, they try to make it like, oh, he had red hair. Well, it's not talking about his hair. It just says he was ruddy. Well, what does that describe? When we compare it to Lamentations, we see ruddy in body. That describes skin. So it's brownish red, and David seems to be described that same way. And that's not the only place he's described that way, because he's also described that way in 1 Samuel 17:42. This is through the eyes of the observer, and perhaps through the eyes of Goliath himself. And when the Philistines looked and saw David, this is 1 Samuel 17:42, he disdained him, for he was but a youth. So Goliath looks at David and is like, who is this little kid? Ruddy and handsome in appearance. It's just describing David. So he's looking at him and saying, here's the way he looked at him. He looked at him like he was healthy, handsome. Okay, so what does that have to do with white people? Teresa Dunlap, thank you for joining in. She said, great point. I agree with you. It was a good point. Okay, so when they say that, they have to deal with the way David is described as well. Their answers for that never work. So I'm just calling that out in this video that Lacey watched.
Chapter 1, verse 3. I'll read you verse 2. That we represent Jacob. And Jacob was wrestling with an angel in the book of Genesis.
We represent Jacob? How do Israelites represent Jacob? Wouldn't it first of all be that even if you were an Israelite, wouldn't it be Jacob represented Israel? Do you hear the backwards, egotistical, self-centered insanity of this religion? Why are we watching this video? Because for whatever reason, when the cops came in to arrest Lacey, who was a terror suspect in Vegas, this is what he was watching. And it's right there on his computer screen. He was at 429 in. Did he finish the video? Don't know. But it's the one video that was up, and he was at 429 in. And it's no white people can get into heaven. And they're trying to give their explanation. Oh, we represent Israel. Well, do they not think that he really wrestled with the angel? He did, but how does it you? You didn't exist then. Of course, they believe in reincarnation, but still.
God changed his name to Israel. Come on. And right here it says, I have loved you. This is the book of Malachi, starting at verse 2. I have loved you, said the Most High. Yet ye say, wherein has thou loved us? And that's a question that we as so-called black people, so-called African Americans ask each other all the time because of all the oppression, all the sin, and all the torment that we go through all the time. Like, you love us.
Do you hear this? This interpretation is horrible. First of all, if you read in Malachi, what's happening is here, Yahweh is describing his love for Israel, and they are being totally disrespectful. They're like, oh yeah, how have you loved us? It's like, what have you done for me, God? What do you mean? What do you mean? It doesn't seem like us. It doesn't seem like to us that you love us. Right? That's what's being said here. And this has nothing to do with, somebody being oppressed in America saying, oh God, how have you loved us? First of all, God shows his love in the new covenant, especially through the outpouring of love that we see on the cross, where the Son soaks up the wrath due us. That's how the Bible says in 1 John, he shows his love. What love is this? And what greater love is this? John also says, not in 1 John, but in another place, for a man to lay down his life, right? That's what the Bible says. That's the way you see it. Because he has paid the price for your sin, if you're one of the elect. This is not Americans in the 20th century or whenever else you want to say, saying to God, oh, you don't love us because we're oppressed. This is Israel really doubting the word of God to them. It's a different kind of thing, but look at the way they interpret this. It's horrible.
While we going through this, and he replied to us and said, wasn't
he replied to us. They insert themselves in the Bible like it's really them.
Esau, Jacob's brother, saith the Lord, yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountain waste.
It's funny to hear how they laugh. Like they're so happy about that because they think it's saying God hates white people.
Esau, watch. Jacob's brother, saith the Lord, yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountain waste, and his heritage waste, for the dragons of the wilderness. That would be called Mount Seir.
Okay, that's true. It is Mount Seir, which is actually over there in the land of Jordan. It's in that area that would be like southern Israel or modern day Jordan. It's actually mentioned in the Quran, I believe. Well, not in the Muslims try to make it be mentioned because it's mentioned in Isaiah 42. So they try to transpose that to make it be about Muhammad because they try to say it's the one in the Arabian Peninsula. It's a long story there. Islam Critique did good video on that. But so, do you hear this nonsense? The way they interpret the Bible? It's horrible. But notice what it's saying there. You know, I mean, like about Esau. Like God is saying, hey, you know, Esau's been judged, man. Esau's been judged, right? And how have they been judged? How have they been judged? Malachi 1:3, by the way, is the verse. I have shown love to you, says the Lord, but you say, how have you shown love to us? Esau was Jacob's brother, the Lord explains, yet I chose Jacob and rejected Esau. What God is saying there, I've shown my love and my choosing. I turned Esau's mountains into a desert wasteland and gave his territory to the wild jackals. This shows that Edom got abandoned. Edom says, though we are devastated, we will once again build the ruined places. So the Lord of heaven's air armies responds, they indeed may build, but I will overthrow. They'll be thrown as the land of evil, and people with whom the Lord is permanently displeased. Your eyes will see it, and then you will say, may the Lord be magnified, even beyond the border of Israel. Now, it's just talking about actually in the land of Edom. It's not talking about in America, which is what they try to make it into. But this has to do with Edom, a nation that was against Israel by and large, during Malachi's day, not with America and not with Israelites in the 21st century, or should I say Hebrew Israelites who think they're Israelites.
In Germany. Well, you heard of the Caucasus Mountains? That's what.
Have you heard of the Caucasus Mountains? What's that have to do with it?
In Germany. Well, you heard of the Caucasus Mountains? That's where white people come from. That's where the term Caucasian comes from. Right.
That's where the term Caucasian comes from. The term Caucasian being applied to all white people is a misnomer, first of all. But white people don't come from the Caucasus Mountains. It's like, this is something they say. But it's silly. What is it, in modern day Georgia, I think? The Caucasus Mountains? Like, some white people came from there. It's weird to say, what do you mean by came from there? Did they live around there or whatever? You know what I'm saying? But what does that have to do with Mount Seir?
This is Romans 9:13.
What did that do with Mount Seir? They didn't explain.
As it is written, meaning it was written before early in the Bible. Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Now to go back to
Now, so they go to Romans 9, where Paul quotes Malachi 1, and here's what's so fascinating about it. What is the point of Romans 9 through 11? What's happening is Paul is saying Jesus is the Messiah. And then you have Jews sometimes who said, okay, if he's really the Messiah, then why aren't more Jews accepting the Messiah? Paul says, hey, it's God's choice to choose who he wants and how he wants when he wants. And what's happening right now is God is choosing more Gentiles than Jews. And that's just a reality. And they're like, well, what? And Paul's like, well, let me give you an example of how God is always the one choosing. He's the one in charge of election. And he goes to example of Jacob and Esau, for example. saying here's an example where he chose one and not the other in regards to be the one that the lineage of the Messiah will come from. So the funny thing is about these Israelites going here is they don't really even pay attention to the argument Paul is giving, which the argument Paul is giving is a response of, well, okay, why aren't more Jews accepting God, Jesus specifically as Messiah, and why are more, Gentiles doing it? And so he's having to show how, well, election is always God's prerogative, and this is how he's doing it right now. And so he's always able to elect. And in this case, he's electing a bunch of Gentiles, not only. But it's funny, that's what's going on here. And they're missing it just to try to get to show that this verse means, this means Romans 9 actually means God hates white people. That's what they're trying to do with the verse.
Do you feel as if so-called Jesus Christ came back to die for us and forgive us for our sins? And so pretty much abolish,
that was my understanding when I was in church.
And to pretty much abolish the law of the Old Testament, right? I got Hebrew.
This don't hurt the church alive.
Okay, so do you feel as if God is in these church buildings?
Is God in these church buildings? Remember, so she's not a Christian. She's left the church, she says.
No, God is in the people. God is within us. God has never been.
What Christian thinks God is located in the church building? Oh, yeah, good answer, sister. We don't think that either. What are you talking about? We can still meet wherever we meet. You guys are meeting in a room right now. They're all happy. That's right. Okay, she got it. She's not a believer, man. She's not a Christian, and she's not a Hebrew Israelite. They're so excited.
I never believed that. Okay.
Yeah, that shows you that's not what Christians taught. So, hey, guys, what's your point?
I touched on heaven, right? I have a question on this. So, this is the question. Do you believe there will be slaves in heaven?
Yes.
So she asked the question, do you believe there will be slaves in heaven? Yes.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah, of course, Teresa. Edit it out. Do whatever you want. Yeah, use whatever is helpful. Well, I'm saying Teresa, but I don't really know who's on the... Whoever's utilizing it, whatever Dunlap is utilizing it, yes, of course, you can... Anything I take is good. Just chop it up and make it better. Yeah, it's all good.
Most definitely. And I will give you a verse that says...
So, is there slavery in heaven? Yeah, there's slavery in heaven. Now, let me give you a verse that proves it.
Can we all...
Hosea 6. He said Hosea 6.
all agree that the so-called white man had us in slavery?
Can we all agree that the so-called white man has slavery? Is that a... It's funny the way these guys, these questions they ask people. Yeah, we can agree on that, I think. I think we can agree. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We can agree, right? Okay, so y'all believe in karma?
Do you believe in karma? So first of all, you got Hebrew Israelites who believe in reincarnation. As if that wasn't bad enough, apparently some of them believe in karma as well. Now look, the Bible talks about you reap what you sow. All right, this is true. That's not karma though. The principle of karma is something different and specific. Right, to Eastern religions. Why are these guys asking them if they believe in karma? Is that a way for them to try to get to accept the justice of God? Who taught these men to teach this way? Do you believe in karma? Okay, good, we're on the same page. Cool. Because, white people had us in slavery, so therefore,
Of course, yeah.
Okay, this is what the most...
Of course. Do people even know what karma is? Of course. I mean, guys.
About karma. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 10. He that leadeth.
I'm going to get Isaiah. They think there's a whole bunch of them. They're really excited. He's probably going Isaiah 14 too, if I had to guess. So he's going to, let me read Revelation. We're going to show what it really means here in a second.
Into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patient and the faith of the saints. And the saints are the Hebrew Israelites of this Bible.
The saints are the Hebrew Israelites. The saints are all those who are elect.
So who killed with a sword back in the day? Because there was no such thing as guns. We were slain by swords.
Hebrew Israelite argumentation is straight up stupid sometimes. So, who killed it? Because back in the day, there was no such thing as guns. Hold on. When was the first gun? I'm not even sure, because they like to date it at 1619. Yeah, that's a funny thing that he said. Yeah, I'm just looking it up. Columbus is the first one to apparently bring guns to the New World. There's a whole NPR article about it. There's a whole little article about it on NPR. And so if you're going to date the slave trade to 1619, what is he talking about? I know the point he's trying to make, but they did have guns. You can find like old woodcuts of Spanish soldiers aiming those old school guns back in the 1500s. So they would have had guns. What are you talking about? Anyways.
So who killed with a sword back in the day because there's no such thing as guns?
So who killed the sword back in the day because there's no such thing as guns? Columbus brought guns with him. He had cannons even, and the Spanish had guns, and this is all the way back in the late 1400s. So the people involved with the slave trade did have guns. What are you talking about, bro? So he's just trying to make this point because he's trying to show the sword, but it's so dumb, and it's wrong too. It's not true. You should look up this NPR article. It's called "The First Gun in America," and that's not the only one. There's other articles like that, but that's a little interesting one as well. So I'm just. These guys should look up more about the history of the firearm. Here's an article called "The 9 Oldest Guns in the World." And I mean, the Chinese are inventing gunpowder back in the 9th century. And the earliest depiction of a gun apparently is from the 12th century or the 13th century. Right? So what are you guys talking about? What you guys talking about? I mean, here you can go on to oldest.org and look up King Louis XIII's flintlock gun made in 1620. Here's George von Reichen's revolver, 1597. These are guns that I think still exist because there's pictures of them online. Here's old school guns from Japan, 1543. Emperor Charles V's wheel-lock pistol. Wow, some of these old guns look wild. Here's one from the 1540s. And there's this strange little cannon thing from 1288. But my point is, I'm sorry, I got carried away with that. It's not even true what he's saying, man. Come on, guys.
We were slain by swords, big knives. Would y'all agree?
We were slain by swords, big knives. You guys agree with that? That's not correct. I'm not saying there was no slaying with swords. I'm just saying there were guns also.
And the wars are like before the World War II.
Can you read that again?
The wars before World War II? Bro, I didn't know he said that. Do you see how Hebrewites just make up arguments on the fly? I know this video is about Lacey Walther, a man who was inspired or ingesting Hebrews-like teaching and also is a terror suspect in Vegas, okay? This is the video he's watching apparently when he got arrested or shortly before. It was up on his computer screen on Bree Talks. But I'm just listening to the argumentation in the 6-minute clip, and it's so astronomically ignorant. We got to comment on it. Doesn't he know people in the Civil War are running around with guns? Doesn't he know the War for Independence? Like, remember the British soldiers lining up, in the gentleman's way of fighting? The French and Indian War? Guns are all up in that mix. World War I? They had tanks and stuff, man. Dude.
That's where it's supposed to say that slaves will be in heaven. Okay, can you read it again?
This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 10.
Someone needs to fix this guy's arguments.
Start at verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Meaning that saints of his people, we're waiting for that day when he comes back. If you get the kingdom, to have slaves, because if it wasn't for our ancestors disobeying the Most High, we would still be in rulership to this day. We wouldn't have to work.
You hear this guy? We're waiting for that day where we can have slaves. We should still be in rulership, where we don't have to work. This guy's goal in his life is to not work. It appears Lacey Walther was already doing that. He's living in his mom's garage. So you can fulfill that fantasy now if you want, man. You know, it's funny. Is that really the dream of the image bearers of God to not work? I don't know. I think I remember Adam in the garden in the most idyllic conditions of all, being set up and being told by God to work. Anyone else? Israelites, did you remember that in Genesis? That's not a goal of humanity to own slaves. These guys are so perverse in their thinking. They don't even really realize what the image of God means and how God has originally made Adam and Eve. He set them up to work in the beginning. And even in the commandments, these guys make a big deal out of Sabbath. What's it say? You shall work 6 days. Rest on the seventh. The whole point of resting on the seventh is because you're working the other 6. This guy's over here, we can't wait, to get slaves and, be in rulership so we don't have to work. Like I said, man, you can fulfill that fantasy right now. Lacey Walther was living in his mom's garage. He was already living the Israelite dream, according to this brother.
Have to worry about getting up on somebody else's clock, you know what I mean? But this is Isaiah 4.
Don't have to worry about being on someone else's clock. God says work on 6, rest on the 7th. Oh! Still on somebody else's clock.
King and 1. By the King James Bible. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Jacob will be the Israelites. The strangers would be all the other nations who put us into slavery.
Notice he says Isaiah 14, strangers means all the other nations who put us into slavery. But if we go to passages that show strangers being united with Israel, then he'll say it's Israelite foreigners. Literally the same word in Hebrew. With this, he'll say, oh, that's what it means there. Come on, man.
The Arabs, the Greeks, the Romans, the Africans, and
the Africans. So he's saying we're going to have African slaves. Everyone needs to make sure they catch that.
Those are the nations of people that put our people into slavery. That's why I say who that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. It's 5 nations of people that's going into slavery.
I have a quick question. Do you guys read any other version of the Bible than that one?
No.
All right, so they're saying they only use the KJV. So let's look at Revelation 13. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. So this is John the Revelator telling you what he saw in this vision. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns were 10 diadem crowns, and on its heads a blasphemous name. So there's an element of rulership, but also element of rebellion against God. You guys see all that? Now the beast that I saw was like a leopard, but its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. The dragon gave the beast, so there's a dragon and a beast. The dragon then gives the beast his power, his throne, and great authority to rule. So there's a satanic relationship there between this wicked government and Satan. And so Satan is essentially empowering this wicked government. One of the beast's heads appeared to have been killed, but the lethal wound had been healed. So people sometimes say that refers to something that happened with Nero. There's other explanations for that. But we understand John's have a vision. I don't want to get caught up there, but I want you to show that the dragon gave the beast power and authority to rule during this time. And the whole world followed the beast in amazement. They worshiped the dragon because he had given ruling authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast too, saying, who is like the beast and who's able to make war against him? Nobody can fight against this government, this kingdom. Nobody can beat it. The beast was given a mouth speaking proud words and blasphemies, and he was permitted to exercise ruling authority for 42 months. So who would permit him? Now, the dragon would want this to go on longer, right? So it's not the dragon. Who's permitting him to exercise this ruling authority for 42 months? That would be Yahweh. Yahweh saying you'll have power, you'll have charge during this time. So the beast opened his mouth to blaspheme against God, to blaspheme both his name and his dwelling place, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So of all those who under God rule, the saints under God's kingdom, the beasts were permitted to go to war against the saints and conquer them. So notice here, God allows the beast, this wicked government, to go to war against the saints and to even have victory over them in the temporal. So notice, that's the key interpretive to understand Revelation 13, because we're showing how 9 and 10 doesn't mean what they say it means. He was giving ruling authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. So this is a multinational rulership, And you see that the beast has authority over all these different types of people. And God's kingdom, the saints are in all these places, so keep that in mind. And all those who live on the earth will worship the beast. Now, not all, not the saints. Everyone whose name has not been written since the foundation of the world in the book of life belonging to the Lamb who was killed. Everyone whose name has not been written since the foundation of the world in the book of life belonging to the Lamb who was killed. If anyone has an ear, he had better listen. If anyone is meant for captivity, into captivity he will go. If anyone is to be killed by the sword, then by the sword he must be killed. Now, they're not going to like this translation. This is the NET, the New English Translation. Sometimes they use it, sometimes they use the ESV. The ESV doesn't help them either. They use the KJV because they think it helps them, but the KJV still doesn't say what they want it to say. But the NET does clarify it better than the KJV. If anyone is meant for captivity, into captivity will go. It's not saying what they're saying. It's saying, oh, the same people who killed slaves with the sword then are going to go get killed by the sword and go into captivity. Remember, God had given the beast ability to war against the saints and to defeat them during this time. So within that, if anyone is destined by God to suffer in a way where they are imprisoned or go into captivity, then that's what's going to happen to them. And if anyone's destined by God to become a martyr, then they will be killed by the sword. This is saying that God's people will be persecuted in the way God has selected for them. That's why the next verse says, this requires steadfast endurance and faith from the saints. Revelation 13, 9 and 10 is about people who are God's people who suffered during the tribulation. Not about Hebrew Israelites getting vengeance on those that they say enslave them.
Why?
To prove why? Because they're false.
All right, can you go back to that Revelations you was at? Revelation 13.
No, I might read other books to see what they correlate with the Bible.
No, I'm about to read. No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to go to some other book. This guy is horrible with his arguments. No, we're going to do this instead. This is this lady's channel. Bree Talks. It's her channel, her show. She's invited them on to understand what they believe. And this is what they're saying.
Just because I can tell this verse is like a spirit right now. I'm gonna give you
No, wait. Revelation 13, chapter 13.
So he's like, no, I'm in the spirit. I'm going to go somewhere else. She's like, wait, I want to go back to that verse. So notice, this is an important thing to notice. This is a girl who's not even a believer. She's not a Christian. She says she's left the Christian church, right? Now check this out. She is saying, let's go back to that passage. Because what do Hebrew Israelites do? They read a verse and say it means what I says it means, and they never do any deep interpretation. It is so incredibly rare to find a Hebrew Israelite who says, here's the reason why this interpretation is correct. And actually go into the words and go into the context and actually show it. It's so amazingly rare. It literally almost never happens. She's asking them to go back and revisit Revelation 13 to see if it means what it says it means. And they're like, no. Because Hebrew Israelites don't believe in that. They want to do hopscotch.
Go back to that Revelations you was at. Revelation 13.
No, I might read other books to see what they correlate with the Bible.
Yeah, but hold on. Just because I can tell this verse is like a spirit right now. I'm gonna give you
No, wait.
No, we're in the spirit right now. So this guy's like, I'm gonna go look at some other books to see how they care about the Bible. And the other guy's like, I'm gonna give you 2 more verses. So she's like, no, let's look at Revelation 13 again.
Chapter 13.
Chapter 13, verse 10.
Verse 10.
And I'm gonna give you a precept, because a precept is pretty much how we're supposed to understand the Bible, and that's how he tells the Israelites to read this Bible.
Right.
And so a precept is pretty much you can find something right here, and you can go to a different book and find it right there.
He literally is describing Hebrew hopscotch. It's where they jump from verse to verse, briefly touch on it, and then go to the next one. They never stay in the place and park there. He literally just described Hebrew hopscotch and said that's how we're so. No, you're not supposed to do it that way. The reason why they do that is because that's what Abba Bivens taught Ariah, and that's the way they're taught to read the Bible, which is to not read the Bible, which is to prove text to text.
Here a little, there a little. And so this is in the first book, because Revelation is the last book, we agree, right? In the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, chapter 9, verse 6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shedded. For in the image of God made he man.
Habakkuk 2 and 12, both of him.
Hold on, let's stop there. Genesis 9:6. a place where people go when they make a defense for the universal application of the death penalty in regards to murder. Because even prior to the Mosaic Law and shortly after the flood, so this is the post-diluvian world, you have God saying, hey, man, each person will exact punishment for the life of the individual since the man was his relative. Whoever sheds human blood, by other humans must his blood be shed, for in God's image God has made humankind. First of all, that shows that humans of all types and stripes are made in the image of God. They just gloss over that without realizing that. That means all the people that you guys hate, the Bible says are made in the image of God. Recognize that. Number one. Number two, they're saying this as a proof text to say, well, so Edomites and all those other wicked people, they got to be judged. That's what he's trying to get out of it. He's saying from Genesis to Revelation, it teaches revenge upon white people and everybody else, right? He's just trying to get out of it. Glossing over the fact that if a Hebrew Israelite is a murderer, this would mean the same thing for them. But guess what these guys teach? They teach that Judas Iscariot is going to be in the kingdom with slaves. What I mean is, not that he is a fellow slave, but if Judas Iscariot is an actual Hebrew Israelite, which you'd have to be if he's one of the 12, right? He's going to be in the kingdom enjoying the riches of God's bounty just because he's an Israelite. Because these guys are one-Westers, and one-Westers teach essentially ethnic universalism, which means it's not anything you do, it's who you are automatically. And so because of that, you can even commit blasphemy and still go to the kingdom eternally. Because Jesus says it's an unforgivable sin. Ask a Hebrew Israelite, who is Jesus talking to? He's talking to fellow Israelites. And he's saying, if you commit this unforgivable sin, it can be forgiven of you. But they don't know what to do with that, because if you have an Israelite who has an unforgivable sin, how then could he be in the kingdom eternally? If Jesus is saying there's an unforgivable sin that you can commit, which is essentially rejecting God. If you do, then you've committed blasphemy. You can't be forgiven. So what do you do with that? They can't do anything good with it. They don't know what to do with it.
The town with blood and establishes a city by iniquity.
Iniquity means sins.
Who took America from the Native Americans?
Who took America from the Native Americans? These guys act like they're so smart with it. Who did that, pray tell? Pray tell, please, could you please tell me, if you could humor me for a bit, please tell me. Who took, was there any guns before World War I or World War II? Like, they actually they're doing something. Iniquity means this, and it's so dumb, and they think they're teaching people, and they're saying the dumbest stuff you could imagine. I'm sorry.
Did a complete genocide?
If it was, again, if it was a complete genocide, then the Native Americans would be dead. I'm not saying you can't fault America for the treatment of Native Americans, but if it was a complete genocide, then they would be dead, because complete genocide means you wiped out the race. They don't know anything of what they're saying. They literally don't say anything right. He thinks he's so slick, he lays back like, I got him with that one. Most high spirits upon me. Yeah, job well done.
Didn't the Spaniards take over Central and South America?
Didn't that happen? Didn't the Aztecs take over a lot of the other tribes in the area from? Didn't the Aztecs have an empire where they conquered a lot of the other peoples? Didn't the Aztecs do that? Didn't the Incas conquer a lot of the other people around them and their neighbors? And didn't they both those people groups, the Incas, like the Peruvians, and didn't they commit human sacrifice against some of the other tribes they took over? Didn't they do that? Yes, they did. But yet they're on your 12 tribes chart. It's just so dumb. What they're trying to say. Anyways, that is the video that Lacey Walther watched. So now we get to watch the dumb stuff that he watched. And if we get right to 429, this is the place he left off at.
This would be all the other nations who put us into slavery.
So he stopped right there. That's exactly where he had it. So now we've looked at in this situation. And now you know a little bit about a new kind of terrorist, a confused person who's got multiple streams of heresy floating around in their data banks. And some of it apparently is influenced by Osama bin Laden. And then some of it is influenced by Hebrew Israelism. And it'll be interesting to see this case as it continues to unfold. But yes, You have a terrorist suspect who was influenced by Hebrew